Assalamu alaikum. How are you all? I hope you must be having a great time. If you remember, in the previous session, I concentrated on the subdisciplines of linguistics in the form of syntax and semantics. Today, I'll switch my discussion to the aspect of pragmatics and discourse. So, what is pragmatics? What do we mean by pragmatics? Pragmatics is actually the study of intended meaning. Now, if you look at the whiteboard, over here I have written this intended meaning. Now, if you remember, in the previous session, in the aspect of semantics, we also came up with the same logic. Then one might ask a question, what's the difference between meaning and intended meaning? So, in pragmatics, the basic purpose is to understand the speaker's intended meaning. It means the various aspects of meaning are understood. Now, how do we understand them? For that matter, one needs to understand the concept of context. That context and situation are the two most prominent factors on the basis of which one can come up with the logic of intended meaning. One cannot decipher a particular message transmitted by a speaker or within an interaction or conversation unless the context is purely and thoroughly analyzed. This is how we are going to understand the concept of pragmatics. In pragmatics, we have the concept of lexemes and utterances. So first we would like to explain these two with regard to the idea and notion of pragmatics. Now we have number one, lexemes, and then we have utterances. If I can make it slightly more precise, I would like to use the term word and sentences. Over here, you can easily understand the meaning of this term lexeme and utterances. In pragmatics, the primary concern revolves around the idea of lexemes and utterances. Now, what do we mean by these two terms? In the context, we try to interpret a message on the basis of these two, utterances and lexemes. Whatever word may have been transmitted or a sentence may have been uttered have to be understood within the context, within the same situation. That's the logic of pragmatics. So, if we wish to draw a line between semantics and pragmatics, how are we going to do this? Let me slightly elaborate this. In semantics, we are concerned with the science of meaning. In pragmatics, the science of intended meaning or speaker's intended meaning. Now, how are we going to draw a line? If we as students of linguistics want to draw a line between the two, so the line is quite thin, arbitrary, yet one has to admit that Pragmatics is actually concerned with the notion of interpretation, how you are going to decipher a message. This actually tries to understand and analyze the other aspects that revolve around the situation and context of meaning. So pragmatics is actually the interpretation and the understanding of the hidden meaning, what actually speakers intend to convey. This is the difference between semantics and pragmatics. So we can say semantics is the study of surface meaning, while pragmatics on the contrary is the study of deep meaning. So this is how we are going to understand the difference between semantics and pragmatics. Now I would like to switch my discussion to discourse. And what do you mean by discourse? Now, what do we mean by discourse? Discourse is actually the study of language beyond the level of a sentence. Now, when we refer to this idea that it is actually the study beyond the level of a sentence, what do we actually mean? First and foremost, we would like to analyze the etymology of this word discourse, that how discourse came on the scene, how it surfaces. Now, discourse is actually a Latin word. It is derived from a prefix dis and curere. Discurrere, which means run away. Run away means something that is in a continuous flow. Now, what do we have in a language that is often persistently in a flow? That is absolutely discourse. Now, we sometimes have a false notion that discourse is always written. No, discourse can be either spoken or written. So we must try to qualify this term, that discourse can be either spoken and written text. Now, how do we study discourse? We actually study discourse within a particular social context. Social context. What is social context? Social context means that without a context, the discourse cannot be extrapolated. It means that the function of a discourse cannot be extended to other dimensions and parameters. So we must understand this phenomenon that we can have so many discourses: religious discourse, cultural discourse, academic discourse, political discourse. All of them are actually the examples of discourse. They can be either written or spoken. But to analyze, decipher and comprehend a discourse, one must be dependent on context. Without a context, we cannot understand any discourse. There is another aspect that I would like to express, and that is that even a single word or more than word can function as a discourse. But at the same time, one has to confess that discourse is usually more than a word or a sentence. It is often operating at the level of paragraph, passage, page, or even a book. So this is something one has to understand. Now this was all about the branches of linguistics, and this was something that I wanted to convey till discourse. In the next session, I would be starting formally each and every branch in an elaborated manner. Till then, I would like you all to stay updated and wish you a very best of luck. Thank you very much.